You're listening to the Study Clicks podcast, your number one source for junior and leaving cert tips. We make exams easier.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cyclics podcast. We're on the roll at the moment of getting in people to join us instead of me and Emer just blabbering on to each other. We're delighted to be joined by two StudyClicks maths experts, Ethan O'Mahony and Luke Power, who are also studying maths in college. Hi guys, how's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
So for anyone, people might actually find Ethan and Luke's voices familiar if you have listened to our StudyClicks maths videos before. They are usually created by Ethan, Luke, and another guy called Sean, who's unfortunately not here today. But yeah, so they're the ones who talk you through all of those past maths questions to try and make it a bit easier, to break it down, to show you how the solution is done out. And obviously they're therefore very fitting people to talk to us today about how to get through maths. They know all about it. And they're both studying some form of maths in university as well. So I suppose we'll start with Ethan. Do you want to tell us quickly what you're doing?
Yeah, cool. Hi, my name's Ethan. I'm from Waterford, and I'm studying maths with a minor in statistics in Trinity. I'm in second year now, and I record, as Emer was saying, I record the junior cert maths videos on StudyClicks.
Thanks very much, and they're brilliant as well. And then Luke, you focus on the leaving cert ones.
Yeah, I do the leaving cert ordinary level ones. I'm from Castleknock in Dublin, and I'm also in Trinity with Ethan, and I study maths and economics.
Yeah, perfect. And so I think for me, what I want to ask first is what led you to doing maths? Because I think so many people have such a hatred for maths and just want to sort of be done with it and get through the exam and never have to sit it again. For you, what is the draw of doing maths in university? What do you hope to get out of it afterwards?
Yeah, well, what I personally want to do afterwards is go into like finance, so either investment banking or trading. And I feel like maths is kind of really broad in the sense where like you can go into something like that, like finance, especially like I'm doing it with economics, so it's even like more tailored towards that. But also like maths can be used in like so many other areas like computer science and engineering and all that stuff. So I don't feel like that's the only road that you could go down, but yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, and I find like even you don't realize how universal maths is, or how much it just comes up everywhere in life. You kind of think that I'm never going to need this, you know. I think that's definitely a thought that I had loads, like, why the hell am I learning this? When am I ever going to use it? And then even just like in daily stuff that I do for StudyClicks, you just have to like, you know, you're doing Excel sheets or like you're working with numbers all the time, and it's just like, oh yeah, okay, I finally see now why I was learning this in school. You know, it does actually make sense to have a good basic knowledge of this at least.
Yeah, kind of going off on a tangent when you mentioned like investments, I'm sure you were like tuned into when that whole GameStop thing was happening like a couple, like 2 months ago, and everyone was just like, oh, I want to get into stocks now and I'm going to like become a millionaire. Were you like, did you truly like understand all of that? Because I didn't have a clue. I thought that'd be like a really good thing to kind of have a bit of knowledge on.
Yeah, like I didn't actually personally invest in like GameStop or anything. Maybe I know Ethan kind of likes to dabble in that stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of more into that, but
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
This podcast is now going to be tips and tricks on how to invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah, like it made sense. Like I understood like the whole short squeeze thing and all, but I didn't actually get involved. My brother was like really into it or whatever. He didn't invest in GME, like in GameStop. He invested in like some other one, like the AM something, AMC, is that it? Yeah, AMC, right?
No idea.
Don't look at us.
Yeah, I think it was AMC.
We'll take your word for it.
Sorry, yeah, and he made a killing on that. Like he enjoys that stuff, so.
Yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that it became like a bit of a bandwagon, really. Like everyone was talking about it, but no one understood it. And so I just thought like it would be really interesting when something like that is happening, that you actually you would be able to explain it to people and you would know what you're talking about.
So Ethan, we were saying earlier that you're doing pure maths. So, you know, Luke was saying he's doing it with economics and finance, and, you know, that obviously is a whole other branch of maths. But as someone who's doing pure maths, what's the goal for you afterwards?
yeah. So like, well, the reason I chose to do maths in college was because like in secondary school I loved science. I did all the sciences and applied maths, and I was originally going to do physics in college, But then I came to the realization that, well, actually it's because I started getting into stocks and investing and everything in 6th year that I realized maths would give me more kind of opportunities, like if I decided to go into finance or something. Whereas if I was going to do like theoretical physics, then I'd be kind of tunneled into that, like.
Yeah, you don't want to narrow down your options or anything like that.
Yeah, and especially like within maths itself, like especially in Trinity, but I'm sure in other colleges as well, like there's a lot of different options. Like for us, when we get into 2nd year, you can choose to do a minor. So I chose to do a minor in statistics because like that's kind of leaning towards finance as well. It's kind of similar to what Luke is doing, but obviously less economics. And yeah, we do probably more pure maths, which is more like theoretical proofs and fundamentals, as opposed to like discrete mathematics, which is more like doing calculations, and like that's kind of like engineering.
Okay. There's so many branches to maths. Like, it really is
Yeah,
never-ending possibilities.
I suppose the point, or like what's clear from all of that, there are so many branches and there are so many areas in your life where maths is applicable and where maths is relevant, even if you don't want to go on and study it, that I suppose my point is for students not to dismiss maths as something that's just going to disappear when they're finished school, that it's worth something. It's worth putting time and a bit of effort into it now to try and fully understand it and even possibly enjoy it if they get there, because it is everywhere, and it could also, you know, help you even if you're not thinking of studying pure maths like you guys are, that, you know, if you go down the business route or if you go down the analytics route or whatever it might be, that maths is everywhere you go. So it's worthwhile.
It'll pop up
putting the
in
effort into
unexpected places. Yeah.
study.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone should have like at least a basic understanding of maths, because yeah, as you said, like it's used in so many different places, like finance, engineering, computer science, and like even as technology is getting more popular, like everybody kind of needs to know basic maths, because computers kind of only understand maths. So it'll be more and more relevant in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. The rise of technology and computers, maths is everywhere there. So I suppose we don't want to scare people who are listening to this who currently feel like they're really bad at maths and they're like, oh my God, maths is everywhere. I was hoping to give it up, or I just really wanted to listen to this podcast to get tips on how to do the exam. For those of you, don't worry, we're going to get onto that now. We're going to talk more about the sort of the Leaving Cert and the exam itself. And again, both Luke and Ethan are great guys to talk to us about this. They make the videos for us. They know the tips and tricks on how to succeed in all of these questions. And so we're going to talk about tips when you're in the exam. We might talk about like the best resources to use. Sort of tips for maybe changing your attitude towards maths, because I know a lot of people just tend to hate it. It's one of those hated subjects.
Yeah, I think I personally really struggled with maths in school because I was better at the rote learning, like stuff like biology and home ec really suited me because I could memorize something and it would stick in my head for maybe like a month or something, whereas with maths you can't really do that. You have to actually understand what's happening when you're putting all these figures together, and I just worried that I didn't have the brain for that. But we don't think that's actually true, really. You can always practice at like getting better. So what do you guys, basically what I'm saying is, do you guys have advice for how to just improve at maths in general, just how to get your brain better at it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point what you said. Like it's like maths is very different to other subjects because you can't just kind of write down definitions and everything and just learn it off. So you have to kind of approach it in a different way. I think definitely solving problems and doing as many questions as possible is a good way to improve. But also learning the fundamentals is really like critical. And like by that I mean like learning to manipulate equations and stuff is really important for the Leaving Cert and the Junior Cert. Like knowing how to kind of like divide both sides of an equation, or like just manipulate it to get what you want. Say if you have to like solve for x or whatever, like that, you have to do that in pretty much every question in the Leaving Cert. So I think that you definitely need to know how to do that, and also just like basic calculus and geometry. There's lots of geometry questions about like triangles and everything using different theorems and all that in Leaving Cert and Junior Cert, where you have to find the angle of a triangle or something.
Yeah.
So knowing those like geometry proofs and everything is really, really important as well.
And like, let's say for students who maybe they appreciate that they need to know all these things, but it just makes absolute no sense. Like they might as well be, I don't know, drawing circles on a piece of paper and have no idea why, or I don't know, that's a weird example, but do you know what I mean?
What are you saying?
I think, for some people, they just look at equations and stuff on the paper and they have no idea why that's there. They have no idea, like, why am I trying to, like, get rid of something on one side? I have just no idea why I'm even trying to do this. Is there kind of a cheat sheet almost for explaining what's going on? Or I feel like a lot of it, and maybe this is a flaw maybe in the education system in Ireland and in other countries as well, because it seems to be sort of universally, but that teachers have to try and get through the course so quickly that there's no time for explaining the concepts and why you're doing this. It's just like, this is differentiation, this is how we do it, and it's not like, well, this is why we do it, and this is why this is on one side of the equal sign, and this is why this is on the other side, and all that. Do you guys have any tips for just sort of getting the very basic fundamental understanding of it, as opposed to just trying to run through it and get to questions straight away and trying to figure them out without actually knowing what's going on?
Yeah, I agree with like the idea that like how maths is taught in school is kind of like problematic. Like you hear, like I've heard like TED Talks, maybe you're like with your man Sal Khan from Khan Academy, and he talks about how like instead of people actually understanding each topic before you move on to the next one, because maths is so like built on topics you already know, it's like in the education system that we have, like you'll like learn a topic in school with your teacher, you'll do a test at the end of the topic, loads of people will get like 70%, like maybe they'll like that could be considered a really good score, like 70%, 80%, but like that still means that you don't know 20% of the content, and then you move on to the next topic and like that 20% just gets left behind and you're building on a bad foundation. So like I feel like it's really hard to kind of give advice for someone who's like already kind of like really deep into it, like maybe they're like coming towards the Leaving Cert now and like they're already like have a really bad foundation, but like the only way that you can really like understand things is if you go back and you fix that. Like you need to understand all like what Ethan was saying, the fundamentals, like how to manipulate your equations to get like one thing by itself. Like that's something that's used all the times in like all the questions. So like practicing problems, like understanding, like just like it should be second nature, like actually like cancelling stuff out in fractions correctly, manipulating the equation to get what you want, all that stuff. Like you need to be practicing that all the time and like have that down. But also you need to understand all like the kind of like basic topics, like if you're doing differentiation, you don't just want to like it's okay to learn off all the rules, but actually it's much better if you understand what's going on from the get-go, and like if you don't, maybe go back and actually try and like learn it from the ground up, so then you actually have like a good understanding, and then like from there it becomes a lot easier if you have like a good foundation to build off, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If you don't know where to go to get that basic understanding, do you have any resources or places that you recommend students go to get that very basic level of understanding?
Yeah, like obviously you have your textbook, which like I feel like the textbook is a much better resource than people might realize. Like textbooks usually have some good like a good structure to them, like starting from the basics, and like have like good graphs explaining things. But like if that isn't enough and like you feel like it's something that like you just still understand, like Khan Academy, for example, like I was saying before, they do, like even though it's not tailored to Leaving Cert maths, it's still like maths is universal, right? So like they still have videos on these topics that will like actually explain it to you, or like YouTube as well. Or even getting like, if you need like to ask your teacher, like getting like a private teacher outside school and stuff, like whatever like you can do. But like there's definitely resources out there that you can use, I think.
Yeah, and Khan Academy is free, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think like maths can be sometimes difficult for people who are more practical, where like they don't understand why you're doing something or like where it comes from. But I think especially in secondary school, like maths, sometimes you just have to accept it for what it is, without actually knowing where it comes from, because kind of in college you learn where it comes from. Like you basically build like all the theorems from the ground up. You understand where calculus comes from, where like differentiation and integration, and why, say for example, the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Like you kind of just take some stuff as fact in the junior cert and leaving cert, and I wouldn't worry too much about understanding where it comes from, just know how to do the problems more so. But I'd say for anybody who wants to kind of understand it more and see where things are coming from, there's a YouTube channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown, and he has like series called like the essence of linear algebra and stuff, and he has loads of series explaining, like showing real world applications of stuff and where like fundamental principles of maths come from. So I'd say definitely check them out if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he shows it in like a really good like visual way as well, right? Like he has those like he kind of programs like the pictures or whatever, and like it's really good.
He has really good animations and
that's it, that's the word.
That sounds like a good one, to check out. And I think you're right what you're saying, that not to freak out too much. I know like we kind of put emphasis there on understanding it so much, and then if people are, like you said, going into leaving cert now and they're like, oh, but I don't understand it, I just want to get a good mark nonetheless, you still can get a certain amount with sort of the traditional leaving cert road learning. Like it's not the same road learning that Ness was talking about earlier with biology or home ec, but there's still a certain amount of this stuff comes up every year, and this is typically the same question type. They might change around the person's name or like the shop or the product that they're buying or whatever it is, but it does kind of, there's still a certain amount of road learning you can do, and even if you don't understand the concepts, you can still do quite well in the exam by just practicing papers over and over again.
Yeah, I probably came across too much like the idea that you need to have like a really good understanding. I feel it's a good balance between having a good understanding and also accepting things. Like for example, like you have your rules of differentiating, right? So like x squared goes to 2x. Like don't try and understand why that's like trying to learn the proof as to why that happens. Like just accept that to be true. I would have spent understanding as in like there is areas where like having kind of understanding what's going on is going to help you, because like if you only learn off how to solve a problem and not actually understand it at all, then when a problem in the leaving cert comes up that's like hasn't been seen before, like it's like a new style of question, but like it's still all the maths that but like you have to apply it yourself. That's when like actually understanding what's going on, like you're going to be able to solve those questions. Whereas if you had like just kind of learned everything off, then you're really going to struggle with questions like that.
Yeah, and I think you guys would agree as well that like you might start off practicing past exam questions, and it's really hard and you kind of need all the help you can get, and you might get it wrong if your teacher asks you. But if you keep practicing that same style, your brain just gets used to it, and it is slowly wrapping its head around it. Like the more you practice, the more you will understand.
I remember like the move seemed like such a big shift. I remember moving from textbooks to exam papers and being like, oh my God, how am I gonna ever like get used to this, because it's so hard. And it just seemed like such a world apart from what we had done in the textbooks, because they maybe ask, you have 20 exercises, and then by the time you get to the 20th one, you're like, oh, no bother, and then they put it into like a project mathsy type thing in the exam, and you're like, oh my God, I know it's the same principles, but this just makes no sense. But Nessa, like what Nessa said is right, that like you just keep practicing it and you do sort of understand eventually where the wording is coming from, and you notice that it's the same thing that comes up again and again. So don't be downtrodden, I suppose, if you find it very difficult at the start. Like practicing papers is the key.
Yeah, I'd say like when I was doing my leaving cert, like I probably spent around 90% of my time like doing questions, and then only the other 10% like reading through the book or something, or reading definitions, because like I'm pretty sure I did almost every question in my textbook, because there's some questions that are like slight deviations of other ones, and like if that comes up on the exam paper, then you might not know how to do it because it's a deviation of another question. So I like tried to kind of cover all my bases and do like as much as I could, and then like the same with the exam papers, like I just did as many of them as I could. But that's another thing, like if you get stuck on a question or don't know how to do it, like that happens all the time in maths, like especially even more so in college. Like I'd start working on a problem and I'd have to leave it until like the next day or something and come back to it, and then I'd eventually get it. But yeah, so like sometimes coming back to it later on and looking at it from a different perspective is really helpful.
Yeah. Patience as well.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy, especially when you're a student and you have, you know, maybe 5 or 6, 7 other subjects to worry about as well. And I only recently learned that this was like a universal experience thanks to TikTok, because I remember like trying to do homework at home and just not understanding it, and then mom coming over trying to help me do it, and then she obviously hasn't done maths in like 20 years, so she's struggling as well, and we're both struggling, and you know, she's trying to be like, well, you know, you just add this and this and then, you know, that I remember just crying at the kitchen table trying to get this maths thing done, and how frustrating it was. And then I recently, like, I saw someone make a meme about it on TikTok, and I was like, they were saying like they basically had the exact same experience, like when you're crying at the kitchen table trying to do your maths homework. I was like, oh, that's something that everyone goes through.
Well, I don't know if everyone goes through that, but yeah.
Maybe not you guys.
Most people, not the maths geniuses over here, but us common folk who don't. Well, like even like I wasn't a bad math student. I stayed not as fast till the end, but like but at like this example when I ended up crying, like it was fine. I remember it was just, you know, I think I had already done 2 hours of homework, and there was another test coming up that week in another subject, and I was just stressed out and burnt out, and I wasn't in the mindset to look at this maths thing. And when I looked at it the next day, I think we went over it in class, and I was like, oh, of course, like the way the teacher showed it made so much sense then. But you, like, again, don't be too hard on yourself if you're not understanding. Give these things time, and do try to look at it, like Ethan said, for just from a different angle.
Yeah, I don't even know if I like fully buy the like people that aren't good at maths, people are good at maths. Like I feel like it's such a thing where people kind of get into the mindset that they're bad, and that kind of like exponentiates and they become worse.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you can actually like have the correct mindset, I feel like maths, I feel like it's just like it favors people with like a competitive mindset almost. If you can like, because it's just problem solving, right? So like if you get a problem wrong, like someone who maybe not competitive, but like someone who's going to accept that and be like, oh, I'm bad at maths now, and then they're just going to like not learn it. Whereas someone else who maybe is like more competitive and they're like, oh, like I got it wrong, I want to get it right, and then they start like grinding it out and like just do like Ethan said, doing all the questions in the textbook. Like I remember I'd go into school some days like in maths, it sounds like kind of nerdy, but like going like a whole like exercise ahead just from like a competitive standpoint. Like I wanted to be the best on like my table. Yeah. And it's like just like stuff like that, like, and like having that kind of mindset like will really help, because like, I know like it's a lot of effort to put in for maths as well, because like I feel like if you do fall behind, it really does take that kind of like extra effort to just grind it out as much as you can until you understand it. But like it's kind of worth it, I suppose, with the extra 25 points and stuff. And the way it's like maths is like, it's also cross like applicable in like physics and applied maths and everything.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you as well when you say that like I don't really think there's such a thing as a maths person, not a maths person, but more so the mindset. Like I definitely am an advocate of that for languages, because I did languages at college, and I don't think that there's such a thing as like a not a language person and a language person. I think it's the mindset. Like you are a language person if you maybe are more internationally minded and want to go off and like visit countries, and then if you don't care, then you're like, it's not so much whether you can or can't do it, it's more about whether you want to do it or not. So I think, yeah, definitely, if you feel like you're not a maths person, maybe try and rethink that. And, you know, is it just that you don't want to be a maths person? And like, look, if you don't want to be a maths person, that's also fine as well. We're here to, you know, just get you through that exam as well. So I suppose to bring it back to the exam,
I was going to ask if you had any more tips about like changing your attitude. I know you guys say that you kind of, did you like maths from the beginning, or did you have at any point did you have to like say, okay, no, I do want to like this subject and this is how I'm going to like it? Or do you have any tips for people, because like we're saying now, we think attitude is a massive part of how well you'll perform in the subject. Do you have any other tips apart from like trying to maybe be a bit more competitive, or to getting a bit more positive about it? Aside from if you get really into stocks, you can become a millionaire.
Well, like personally, like, I remember in junior cert, I really like slacked off in like all subjects, and like in maths I got a C, which was like far from what I got in like my leaving cert, where it's like when I actually got into 5th year, I wasn't great at maths, you know, like not that I wasn't able to be good at maths, but it was more just like I had a bad foundation, I suppose, because I hadn't put in the work at junior cert and stuff. But then like from 5th year, I just like really grinded out, like I was saying, with the mindset thing. So like if you are bad, you could get better. I'm not sure what tips are for people who like don't want to put themselves in that mindset. And like it is a hard thing, like you can't just really shift your mindset for no reason, I guess. But other than just like plug away. And like I feel like you actually will find like a lot of people who think that they won't enjoy maths will actually enjoy it. Like I personally find maths to be like, and applied maths I found in school as well, to be like my favorite subjects by a mile. And like it's because I feel like once you actually start like understanding it, you start getting like exponentially better, and like you get really competitive, and like you're really enjoying the fact that you can actually solve these problems. Whereas like for the people who can't solve them at the start, it's the other way around. It's like you feel like you can't solve anything and you start hating maths. It's just like I feel like it's such a flip. Like as soon as you hit that like inflection point, like you'll start to really love it.
That's so true. The satisfaction is a huge part of it. Like when you get an answer right and you really struggle. Like when I get, I'm not sure if you guys ever watch Countdown, but like that odd time that I get the number and the multiplication right, I'm like, I am a genius.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Mensa test.
Exactly. See, everyone loves it when they're getting it right, you know?
Yeah, and you just kind of have to keep working off that.
Yeah, when you're doing the exam papers and you kind of check the answer at the end and you're like, oh my god, I got it right. I didn't do accounting, but I assume it's the same feeling when your budget or your balance thing.
It's amazing. It's times 10.
So I suppose that can be a motivation point for people that it is like it's much more rewarding maybe than I don't know. Oh, what's another like construction studies? Maybe I don't know where you don't necessarily
remembering that
I suppose
milk is 2% fat or whatever. Yeah. There's no
Nessa, don't diss
satisfaction in
home ec.
remembering that.
Home ec is the best subject.
Yeah, sorry. No.
The point is that maths is very rewarding, and that you should motivate yourself to do maths because it feels really good when you get it right.
Yeah, I think like I kind of always liked maths, so I never really like thought about it too much. But like if there was a problem I couldn't do or something, like I'd always kind of try find like the correct answer and understand like where I went wrong or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's a great segue into why people should use the StudyClicks videos, which you guys have created, because, before, let's say when I was doing the maths exams, you had the past papers and you had the marking schemes, but you couldn't really see where you were going wrong because it just had like 3 lines of the workings, and you couldn't really figure out from that where you went wrong or not. Whereas now with your lovely videos that really break down each solution, it's very clear to see where you may have gotten lost. So definitely check out the StudyClicks maths videos if you haven't already.
Yeah, I mean that's so crucial. Like it's so crucial to actually like see where you went wrong. Like don't just accept like you got a question wrong and then you see like the teacher do it on the board and you're like, oh yeah, I would have got that actually. Don't do that. Like you have to like actually try and do it out again by yourself. Like you really need to get a good understanding of it. Go up like after, I know it's online right now, so maybe it's not the exact same thing, but even like emailing your teacher would be like a substitute. But like when it was in class for me, like every single day after class, even listening to other people going up to the teacher afterwards, like listening to their questions just to see if like if I'd like, do I understand everything, like, or like any question I had was like, don't be afraid to ask your teacher. Don't be afraid to like look stupid in class as well. If like you don't understand something, like what I found personally, like I would always be the worst at a topic at the start of the topic, because I'm just like I'm one of those people that like needs to like know all the nuances. So like we'd start a new topic and everyone else would be like, oh yeah, like I understand, because you're just following what the teacher's doing on the board. And I might like they'd all think I was asking stupid questions because like I just ask all the questions. Like I was like, I just don't understand this, like this makes no sense. And they're all like, oh, what do you mean it's so easy? But then within like a few weeks, when we actually get onto like the tougher questions, since I'd been asking all those questions, I got like a more deep understanding. And when you get onto the more tough questions, and they start falling behind because they don't actually have a deep understanding,
Okay.
So I feel like actually asking questions like that,
That's such a good point. It's the whole of like your brain kind of tricks yourself while you're watching the process, like, oh yeah, my brain would have got that because that makes sense to me now. But if you don't actually question it, well, did my brain get it, or was my brain only getting it because I'm looking at it right now?
Yeah.
That's so crucial, and definitely something I missed out on when I was doing maths in school.
Yeah.
So I was always too embarrassed. Please don't be too embarrassed. Ask your teacher.
I think sometimes it's easier for people who are better at maths, or like they sometimes like don't understand things as well, but there's kind of a lot of pressure on them since they're like the good people in the class or whatever. Like if they don't understand something, then they probably try like figure it out themselves and like eventually get it. Whereas say like someone who's just in the middle of the class or something and they like can't get a question, and they might just give up because they think like it doesn't really matter. I think if you can't understand something, you can't just have the mindset to just give up on it. You have to kind of have the mindset that like, oh, I'll figure this out. I want to know how it works and what the correct answer is.
Yeah.
It sounds so cliche as well, but like other people in the class do not understand it either, no matter how basic your question is, right? Like, or like at least like someone out there anyway, maybe you're the worst in the class. Yeah, exactly. Like generally, especially in a new topic, like you're gonna have the people in the class who just like it clicks straight away, and they're the people who are gonna be like talking like, yeah, that makes sense. They'll be answering the teacher like what the right answer is. But like you, like if you don't get it, like you stop the teacher, in my opinion, like to say like, miss, like I don't understand this, like what did you do there? And like you might think you look like an idiot to those people, but like everyone else in the class is also sitting there like, what on earth is going on? Like you're not the only one, right?
Yeah, and I feel like maths is usually, it's a bit more acceptable to do that in maths, or I think I definitely had that experience that I wasn't as embarrassed to sort of just be like, oh, I don't get it in maths, because like we were saying earlier, it's sort of like universally understood that maths is one of the hardest ones, and that people do really get bogged down in it. So I think people shouldn't, and maybe probably wouldn't as well, be as nervous about doing that in maths. And like you're saying, like because so many people struggle with it, you're definitely helping people out by asking what may seem like silly questions but are actually fundamental.
Yeah, they'll probably thank you in their head, like, oh, like I'm glad he asked it, because they didn't have the courage to ask it or something. And also, like we said before, it kind of compounds as well. Like if you don't ask these questions now, like you're gonna have a bad foundation, and you're gonna move on to the next topic without understanding things, and that's all gonna compound, and then you're just gonna hate maths. Like it's just one of those subjects where you just can't let that happen. You need to ask the questions. Like maybe in another subject where it's all like each topic is like completely different and you just learn off definitions, like you can get away with not understanding something and then just go back to it later. But in maths, like it really does, like you're building on the foundation, and like if you need to make sure that foundation is strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually looking up like tips for maths. It was like one of the main tips was you need to know algebra, because like know your algebra inside out of all the subjects, because that's the base, or all the topics, because that's the base of so many other maths topics. Is it really mainly kind of algebra is that the big one? Is there other ones? Is there other topics as well? As calculus one? When it kind of comes to what you like especially need to know, what are the big ones kind of?
Yeah, well, like calculus is mainly kind of differentiation and integration and all that, whereas algebra is just kind of, like try solve for x, or like find the roots of an equation or something. So I think, yeah, algebra is definitely more important in Leaving Cert and Junior Cert maths, but like obviously that's also what you're taught the most. So like I was saying earlier, it's really important to understand how to manipulate equations properly and all that, and that all falls under algebra. So I say, yeah, definitely like for Leaving Cert, algebra is definitely the thing to focus on the most.
Yeah, because as soon as you strengthen that, you get the other stuff kind of starts to fall into place, is it?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
It's like algebra is used in all the different topics. Like for example, you might get a really big wordy question in trigonometry, and like you need to turn those words into letters and like equations, and that's kind of in a sense algebra, right? Like making stuff into like x's and y's. And then like also algebra, like Ethan's saying, but like manipulating your equations to get whatever variable you need by itself. It's like if you need x, you need to like rearrange those stuff. If you don't know how to, if you're not comfortable doing that, like you need to have that on the back of your hand, right? Like you just need to be able to do that like it's nothing. That's like, it's really like foundational, the algebra side.
And yeah, also algebra I'd say is the one that transfers over most to like chemistry and physics and biology, because like say in chemistry you're usually trying to find like the number of moles or something in a solution, and that's all algebra, like manipulating the equation to find what you want. And the same with physics as well, like there's usually lots of variables and you're trying to like solve for one variable. So algebra is very important in Leaving Cert.
Yeah,
it is the foundation.
Okay, so we'll move on to the actual exam. So at the time we're recording this, it's sort of the middle of March. So exam is coming up in probably about 3 months-ish. I'm not sure when the exact date is, but probably around 3 months. So anyone listening to this as it's coming out is preparing for exams and sort of starting to think about what they should do when they're in the exam and how they should approach the paper. So yeah, I think we should get into maybe tips for the different things that you should be thinking about when you're actually sitting the exam on the day. So in terms of keeping time management, do you think maths, obviously there's paper 1 and paper 2 and they differ a bit, maths is it's usually a subject that people would sort of have trouble with finishing in time, right? Or there is an element of time management to the exam.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like obviously, like, so it goes without saying, the more prepared you are, the easier it's going to be, I guess. Like, if you're really prepared and you know everything, then time management shouldn't be a struggle at all. But yeah, like, if you're not as prepared as you'd like to be, my advice would be, like, what I would do anyway. I'd always start from question 1. Like, I don't look around the paper to find, like, I know some people might do that. Like, they like looking around to get, like, to see all the questions and see which one they want to start with first. I'd always just, like, go through it, like, in chronological order. But like, what I would do is, like, I start with question 1. As soon as I hit a roadblock, like, if I'm doing something and I feel like, wait, is this right? I'd stop for a second, look at it for like a minute, and if it's not clicking in my head like what I need to do, I just skip it like instantly. And like, if that means skipping the whole question because I need that answer, then I'll do it and I'll just move on to the next one. And I just do that thread. Like, you have to be really, like, you have to have a lot of conviction with that. Like, you can't waste your time trying to, like, get a question out. And I'm not saying to leave it altogether. Like, I'll come on to it now. It's like, you skip that question, you go on to the next one, and you do that throughout the whole paper. And once you're done, you should have, if you like skipped a lot of questions and you only did the questions where you really like understood what you were doing, you should have a lot of time left. And that's when you go back and like, you look at these other questions which you weren't getting. And like, at this point as well, you've kind of built up a bit of confidence. You've been doing all the questions which you knew how to do. And like, you're also coming at it from like a fresh perspective. Like in maths, I feel like it's very easy to look at a problem, get stuck, and then to stay there and continuously get stuck on it. Whereas if you move on and then come back to it, like, you'll get it. I think Ethan mentioned it earlier, where like, he's doing a problem in university and like, he'll just have to come back to it the next day and then he'll get it. Like, that's such a thing in maths. Like, you hit these roadblocks and like, you need to move on. And how you can do that in an exam is just to skip the question and go back at the end. And also like the confidence thing as well. Like, if you're getting bogged down in one question and like, you're not sure what to do, your confidence is going to be destroyed for the rest of the exam and you're not going to be able to do other questions. Whereas if you just keep it to the questions which you know how to do, and just have a lot of convictions, just like skip it straight away, don't let it get your head, and then go back at the end, you're going to do a lot better.
Yeah. And an important thing there, I suppose, is to remember that if you do skip it, remember to go back to it.
Yeah.
Even if you're just writing at anything, right? There's a lot to be said for attempt marks and just writing down scribbles, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like 10 marks are huge. Like, if when you go back, make sure you write something exactly. And like, if you do think that you're kind of if you think that you got the wrong answer, like, you can still, even if the next part requires that answer, you can just put in some random answer and then use that answer for the next part of the question, if that makes sense. Because they're not going to mark you down twice. Like, you'll lose the marks in the first part because you got the first part wrong, but then in the second part, as long as you're using your answer from the first part, and you did that part correctly, you're going to get full marks for that part. They're not going to like penalize you twice. And yeah, like, even writing down, I think it's kind of common knowledge, but like, writing down the formulas, like, if you're not sure what to do, but you know, like, oh, this is a like integration question where like average value or something, you just write down your average value formula, like, that's probably worth like 3 marks, in like some cases even more. Like, it really depends on like the marks in that year, but you're always going to get marks for just like jotting that stuff down and just kind of like, just go with it. Like, even if you don't see exactly what you're going to do, just get started, and like, the question might actually like open itself up to you. Like, when you're halfway through, you might realize like, oh, okay, I can actually see the path to like getting the answer now. And if you don't, it's still fine, you're going to get the attempt marks.
One thing about the maths exams is not to overthink too much when you're in the exam, because I think if there's like a question and it says, say, like, suggested time 15 minutes or something, and you get it in like 2 minutes, then like, sometimes you think you did it wrong or something, or it should be a lot harder. But a lot of the time, like, you are right when that happens. Sometimes they have like a full page for an answer, and I'd get the answer in like 1 or 2 lines, and you think like you're wrong, but usually you're right. So it's not worth like stressing over and wasting time on it. So the first time you go through the paper, I'd say just go through it kind of as fast as you can, while also trying to get everything right, but don't overthink your answers too much.
Trust yourself, I guess.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll just end up losing time, and then you'll get to the end of the exam and you'll run out of time. Like, so it's important to be confident.
Yeah, and in terms of everything else you need for the exam, so, you know, obviously calculator, and I know I definitely remember reading at some point that you should always bring 2 calculators. I don't know, is that like just in case one dies?
My junior cert calculator died. And it was a disaster,
really?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I started had to start doing the calculations in my head and stuff.
Yikes. Okay,
That
well,
is a nightmare.
it's a hot tip for everyone listening. Bring 2 calculators because
Yeah.
we have a case in point here. Do you have any more sort of tips for when you're just in the exam and keeping a cool head, or what would you tell someone who's maybe a bit nervous going into the maths exam? Is there anything to
Get pumped, like listen to some some like music, whatever music gets you like pumped beforehand. Like that's what I like to do before leaving cert exams and stuff, just like get into the mindset. Like if you go in nervous, you're really gonna have a bad time. You have to go in confident, and then like just applying what I was saying there before about like just like skipping questions that you don't understand until the end, because like you just don't want that to affect your like mindset throughout the exam, or else like you could just become defeated.
Yeah. And that is so easy with maths, isn't it? Fake it till you make it, I guess. Like just pretend, even
Oh,
if
that's
you
it,
feel like just
100%.
pretend like you know what you're doing and see how far it gets you. And at the end of the
That's
day, if you don't
psychology.
get it by the time the time is up, you're not going to get it. But you might as well like write something down and pretend like you knew it and make yourself feel better about it. You never know when you're going to get attempt marks.
Yeah, I think definitely like the logbooks are your best friend in the exam. Like you can pretty much do every question on the exam just using like the formulas and everything from your logbooks. So learning how to use the equations and everything in your logbooks and apply them to questions is definitely one of the biggest parts of like the exam. I'd say every question I did on the paper, like I just flick into the page on the logbooks that has the formulas I need and everything. And so like definitely make use of them. And if you have to spend even like a full day going through it and understanding the formulas, then like do that, because it's definitely worth it.
There are a few formulas that aren't on the log table as well. Just make sure that I think like average, for that average value of like areas between curves and stuff, like the integration and stuff. I don't think that's on log tables. There's a few like little formulas like that aren't on log tables, so make sure you learn them off. But other than that, yeah, like you don't even need to learn off the other ones. Like he's insane.
Yeah, and I'd say even if you like notice that there's some formulas that aren't in the logbook, just like for your own logbook, like that you use in class and everything, it might be worth just getting like a sticky note or something and sticking it in there and putting the formulas on it, like in the place where they kind of should go, because then when you come to your exam, even if you don't like, because you don't have the same logbook, but you'll still kind of remember it in your head. Like it'll be easier to visualize when you open that page of the logbook, and like it'll kind of be easier to remember.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then obviously like you get a different logbook, so you're not for the exam. I mean, like I think you're not allowed to bring in extra pieces of paper to the exam, so don't risk getting
doing your actual exam
confiscated. But yeah, no, that's good. And like it's only a couple of small things, so you can definitely remember that. Okay, well, we've covered loads there anyway, so that was really helpful. Is there anything else you guys would want to, maybe final tips or anything else to say before we start wrapping it up?
I'd just say like throughout my whole leaving cert, like not just for maths but even for other subjects, like I was using study clicks every day, like because like I found like even especially for maths, like when they break it down like topic by topic, that is like the best feature for me, because like it's easy to like one day study like geometry, then the next day study differentiation, then the next day like whatever you need to. So it's easier to like practice your weaknesses, so when you go into the exam you'll have no weaknesses basically.
Wonderful. And like you're usually doing a topic in the class with your teacher, and you can just go into that for your homework, and it's pretty handy. But yeah, thanks for giving I mean, we all work for Study Clicks, so I think it's a shameless plug on all fronts. But no, you're right. And like from a non-Study Clicks employee point of view, it is just genuinely very good to break it down, because it can seem like such a huge course when you look at all the different elements. But when you do it piece by piece, it all starts to sort of interconnect and make sense, and it makes it a lot more manageable to approach.
Yeah, I think like one thing to note though is that just be careful doing all the exam questions too early. If you're in 5th year and you're doing all the exam questions, like when you get to 6th year, you're not really going to have much exam questions to practice, because you would have seen them before. It's not going to be the same thing. You've seen the questions before, even if you like don't fully remember them, if you even like vaguely remember how you did it, or like what the like this is the process here, like it's not really challenging you the way it should. And also like if you're premature going into the exam questions, like you don't understand that and you're just looking at the solutions, and it's like a waste of a resource, right? So just be careful of that. I think just be mindful.
That's a good point. Yeah. Any eager beavers out there? Okay, well, I think that was great. We've covered loads there, so thanks so much for all those really good insider tips. If anyone is interested in, if they haven't seen Ethan or Luke's videos on StudyClicks yet, be sure to check them out. They're on any of the questions by topic page for maths. Underneath each exam question, there's a little video, so just click on that. We're going to wrap it up otherwise. Nessa, do you want to give a quick spiel about our social media?
Yes, very quickly. It would be great for more incredible content like this made by me. You can follow us on all of the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok and Instagram for just a mixture of everything, you know, good times, fun memes and good study tips.
Yeah.
And it gives me endorphins as well when I get good followers. That's all I have in these dark days.
And if you've any suggestions for other podcasts you want to hear coming up or anything like that at all, just get in touch. We're always delighted to hear from people. So yeah, otherwise that's it. Thanks so much again, Luke and Ethan, for coming on. It was great, and we might chat again at some point in the future for more maths tips. Who knows?
Cheers for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.